Good morning, everyone. So, as promised, I'm going to try to have a little bit of a better day. Not that any of, past rebukes or even the kindled anger towards many congregations that are still unable to receive the Spirit. Before we crack open that nut, I'll leave that for the end. So, book of business today. So whenever we're talking about the Gaza Strip, if America was to purchase Gaza, and essentially it would become an American-Israeli state, so the 51st state of America and the second state of Israel, the advantages directly would be having a shipping port, duty-free and tax-free. That's a big one. Having a direct foothold in the Middle East. And the great thing is, not only would the plethora of opportunities for the Palestinians to not only return righteous ones, they could not only return to their homeland, but it would be a hub of opportunity. And I don't mean, turning Gaza into America at all, but you would have lots of opportunities for, Palestinians to work the ports, to work not only, good jobs to get fair wages, but, it would also help kind of upcycle essentially the downtrodden people, because there's not a whole lot of opportunity, or was a whole lot of opportunity in Gaza. And people that has been war-torn and destitute for long periods of time are not going to be able to come right back in and just, start up a new business, right? There's no money in the kitty, right? That's what I mean. So you're essentially trying to allow refugees back into a desolate place. Like, that's just putting gas on an already large pile of sticks on a bonfire. Like, that's not a very a forward-thinking measure. So, strategically it would be great. You'd have a port into the Middle East, right? That also helps with military strategy as well. So it helps having assets, live assets, permanently in the Middle East. And what better to have an American live permanent asset right next to Israel, right? So you're not only taking the marriage between the Jews and the Christians, but you're taking that not only seriously, but to another level of, on the world stage, you're coming together as a joint front, right? And again, still sovereign on the American side, still sovereign on the Israeli side, but absolutely, make that Gaza Strip some mutual ground, right? And the thing is, that is a good step in the direction of letting the world see your righteousness. That is a good step into the world of showing what kind of brain power, right? Because between America and Israel, you're talking two of the smartest countries on planet Earth. And that's not a short, and I don't want to understate that, because the amount of good that could really be done there. So that's just my take. So I don't definitely, remember, Trump is in purpose, right? Wherever the final card on the deck falls with that, it does. But at the same time, right, look at, Elon Musk, he's doing a pretty good job, in my opinion, of kind of getting in there, right? And he's rooting out a lot of that fraud, waste, and abuse within the government. So a lot of things that are being directed, from me and being broadcast, it's being picked up. That's a lot of, too, where, the core of my wrath and anger stem from. It's like in a parable, if I owned a big pool hall and I went down the road to a pool players club, well, I would expect most people, if not all people in there, should be able to play the game at a high level and understand the rules, know how to win, all these things. So if we take the club of the pool players as like Christian churches, well, they, the pastor's job, right, is to teach the congregation and then to understand the Bible enough that when the identity of me was to start, being rolled out, that my churches, the community, the good pool players would be able to come into the pool hall and, run the table on these other guys. Well, what is happening is I'm broadcasting the Spirit, and it's being picked up by people that are not in church. It's being picked up by people that have had their butts kicked by life, and they're waking up and they're putting down the drugs, they're putting down the drink, they're putting down sin, and they're getting that reborn spirit. That's what I mean, because those people were not full of fantasy. They were not full of false teachings. They were not building false structures in their mind that would prohibit them from receiving the truth, receiving me. So this is a massive problem in the Christian church, because so long as the Christian church uses a legit 100% fake name, the Jewish community is never going to take the Christian community serious. Like, that's just, it is what it is, right? It's like the Christians show up to the pool tournament with, a stick from a tree. It's all curvy, bent, and like they're wanting to play pool. Like, all you guys are doing is tearing up the pool table. You're doing more damage than you are any good. And it's not fun, and it's definitely not like in my purpose that these churches are supposed to be this set back, this like far from the truth. Like, that is terrible. Like, it is hard. It's sickening. I can give spirits to like every other corner of society other than these Christian communities, because their cup is already full, and it's full of the wrong stuff. And that's what I mean. A lot of Christianity follows after Roman pagan beliefs, and that's not what I'm about. That's not what the truth is about. And that's why I frankly don't really like religion in that fact, because religion tries to formalize a relationship that's supposed to be a fluid relationship. It tries to put into place practices and rituals that I didn't approve, nor do I see any purpose or reasoning or even put favor on it, but it's like it doesn't matter. And then you look at Rome itself, right, from the very beginning, Rome has never had truth in them. Like, that's just the way things have always been with Rome. And that's why, again, the adversary works directly with those enclaves. So it is really difficult from my vantage point and my perspective to, how do I break the shells of these, and it's all rotten, but I gotta pull out the few good ones in there. And that's what I mean, right? But all these churches are supposed to be, for me, like all these things, and they're not. They're for a fictitious character, and that's what I mean, right? I don't even like the name Jesus. Like, I was talking last night, to one of my angels, and I was like it makes me uncomfortable. It really doesn't, it's not pleasing to my ears. It's not edifying. Like, it's really hokey, and it, like, again, it like makes me mad, like genuinely mad, because it's almost like, Christians are so obsessed with that name and that idol. You have 8 different versions of Jesus in the Roman church. You got Chinese Jesus, white Jesus, you got black Jesus, and the Pope goes and kisses them all. Like, if you were to just eject yourself from everything you've ever known from the Bible, or what you think you know from the Bible and what you've learned in church, and you just look at things for what they are, like, it's crystal clear. Like, it's not hard. It's only hard when pastors, they start muddying the water because they want to prove to their congregations that they're right versus God. They're right, versus this. And then we rely on the Bible. Well, no, you don't either, because what you're using to say you rely on the Bible is, again, it's untruth. It's wrong in most cases. But even if you were to take the literature and step back from it and do a 10,000 foot view, if you were to see everything at once, you can see the still line of truth in there. But that's the thing, right? Pastors and teachers, false ones, they'll look into the parts of the Bible that they can use as a weapon, or they can use it to justify their stance, and they'll use it to please congregations, and then they'll continuously, beat down on that. And it's like, if they could just stop, open their eyes, hit their knees, and just go, okay, I give up. God, I'm going to stop fighting you. I'm just going to stop fighting your will and show me what's better. But that's the argument we're having, is mankind thinks they know what's better, right? Just like the fallen angels. This is in layers, right? The fallen angels, they thought they knew what was better. 7,000 years in perdition, they still don't know any better. Some of them have learned, right? But other ones, right, they just dug their claws and teeth in deeper into their cause. And so, they will perish. They will be destroyed in the end. But, anyway. So, anyway, that's my take on the Gaza. I think that could be an effective way, to bridge that relationship. And hey, you never know. Maybe I'll get, a tabernacle or a palace out of the deal. Because like I said, I'd love to have some place that is kind of in the middle. Because I don't fully lean into the Jewish community, nor do I fully lean into the Christian community. I need to remain in the middle as truth, and truth of who I am and my being. And I need the left side to come to the middle, as well as the right side to come to the middle. So therefore, the Christians aren't walking over to the Jewish side, and the Jewish sides aren't walking over to the Christian side. Both sides should be coming to me in the middle. That's the point. And the moment either one of them says, well, but we, the but, I don't like to hear but. But is the preface of when you're about to begin an argument with me or trying to tell me I'm wrong. And I'm not wrong. Part of what I am and what I do is I fix things, and I find the weaknesses in creation and created things and beings. I test those weaknesses like an engineer would test the weight of a bridge before it's allowed cars on. I test things in creation to find its weaknesses, and then I find a solution for that weakness. Let's take an armadillo for an example. Without the shell, right, the armadillo actually wouldn't even look anything like it does today. But imagine the armadillo without its shell. At one time was very susceptible to injury. It was susceptible to attacks. It was susceptible to a lot of things. Okay, well, how do we keep that creature in creation, but how do I better protect him? Well, we're going to give him some, biodegradable armor. It's going to grow with him. It's going to provide that protection. And then again, you could use the same exact thing. Then again, think of the Bronchiosaurus, right? The nice, beautiful, long neck, 4 feet. Well, obviously the large, lizards are gone now. But what a beautiful concept. Well, fast forward, why we have a giraffe, right? A giraffe takes the place of the Bronchiosaurus because the giraffe is equally beautiful, but it's less of an impact on creation. It's more of a help when it comes to creation. It rounds out the picture, when you're looking at, if you were to imagine creation as a painting, what would look good in this painting? Well, in the middle of the Serengeti of Africa, having a Bronchiosaurus-like mammal eating from the tops of trees in the background of the Serengeti Plains, I don't see anything much more beautiful than that. That's my point. Human beings, you guys are stewards of the earth. You know, you were supposed to be beautifying things, working with creation, all while knowing the name, knowing the creator, and then, you know, anticipating the arrival of the one he would send, you know, his only begotten son. And, you know, under the name, and that's what I mean, right? What's my name? My name is Josh, you know, Joshua, right? And my new name is to line up with my father's name, right? YHWH, you know, Yahweh, YHWH, Yahuwah. That's why I also spell it the way I do. I spell it the way I do because I'm keeping that line of truth centered, because truly I am one. Like, there is not another, but there are, if you will, multiple sides of the dreidel, you know. And that's kind of how I operate. So I don't like when people try to invertedly look at themselves and then expect a mirror image. I don't think like you. I don't act like you. I don't work like you. There's nothing about me that is like you. However, there are a lot of things about you that are like me. So that can be confusing. You might need to replay that. But my thoughts are not your thoughts. My thoughts are higher. You know, what one man may be looking at in one way, I'm 50 steps ahead, 20 steps behind, and definitely 100,000 feet higher up, because I'm trying to not only solve the current, the interim, the future. Like, I'm making sure that everything in creation has a place and it has a purpose that's going to outweigh the bad at all cost. And then again, you know, when we're talking about big projects like creation, we're talking about new heaven, new earth, like we're talking about all these things, and I can't, you know, really get out of the carport with the people that were supposedly waiting and watching for me. None of the churches can even stomach me because they've all been lied to and have been taught under a false premise. So literally, you've got congregations that are expecting something that's never going to come, because what has come is not what they've expected. And whose fault is it that they don't know who I am, what my job is, right? And then you got people that can't even fortify in their own mind that I am not a trinity, but I am triune in my nature, as you guys have witnessed. Unfortunately, witnessed to be amused versus witnessed to understand and then tell the world. That's another thing, you know, that's written too, where, you know, you guys are looking at me in almost an amazement or as an amusement to you, but then you go back to doing the same thing every day. You work the will of your hands, you work the will of your mouth, you work the will of your, you know, of your churchgoers putting money in the plate. And it's like, all those things are perfectly fine when you're lined up with me, because I'm going to continue to give you more, because I want to make sure that everyone's fed before I start working on my next batch, because then you guys who just got fed are going to be feeding others, right? That's how I operate. I want to raise up as many, you know, as I can in the inner house, because many hands make work light, you know. And a shout out, you know, St. Peter, Pastor Peter over at New Kingdom. You know, I really enjoyed your message. I almost always enjoy your messages. So I just wanted to say, great job. Thank you for that. I really love seeing how you're bringing on, like, you know, guest speakers or just different people that, you know, may not be within that 100% line. But no matter what, you know, you're extending that olive branch. We're having great conversation. And, you know, truth at its highest level really is, love thy God above all else and love thy neighbor only second to that. And that's the truth. And if you imagine what this really looks like if we could take a big eraser and erase what mankind thinks that means. Because, Valentine's Day, that's not love. That's commercialism. Tolerance beyond reason is not love either. That's reckless, because that would mean that, I don't want to upset my teenager so much. Oh, and she really wants to, spend the night at a boy's house. Well, I love her so much. I'm just going to let her do what she wants. That's what makes her happy. I'll just deal with the consequences if, she gets pregnant before she goes to college. That's what I mean. Like, this is unfortunately a very common mindset within my churches. And my churches, my people, are supposed to be like the higher part of society. You guys are supposed to be on the up and up, right? On the higher mind. You guys should be walking not only in accordance with goodness, but you should know righteousness, right? Good, righteous living. Good, righteous living isn't always the easiest road. Sometimes you've got to put your foot down and say, you're not spending the night at no boy's house. Like, your butt staying home. We're not going to deal with, teenage pregnancy. We're not going to deal with flunking out of school because, you're fighting with me over grades. You don't think math is important. Well, as an adult, I know math is important. Just like as your God, I know eternal life is important. I know the things in which I want from you on the earth and in heaven. And that's what I mean. When I'm having that talk with my teenager, I can give my reasons and my rationale, but it doesn't make that pill any less harder for her to swallow, just like it is with the Christian congregations and the Jewish congregations. It's not any less of a pill to swallow, but I want you to understand that there's also a bit of a design to this. Because if I fell into the Christian mold that they want, I would never get my Jewish family. And vice versa. If I fell right into the Jewish mold, I know if I was born in Israel and I was a full-blooded Jew with what they have in their books of a Davidic bloodline, hit the fast forward button. Like, we would have zero issues. But then there would be an issue with me, because then it still remains an issue of the heart. Because at its core, right? How are you going to love your God if you can't accept my character, my person, and, with any relationship, right? If you get into a relationship and you're like, okay, I'm going to love you if, I'll love you until, and I'll love you when. That's not a relationship. That is a shopping list. And I'm a living, breathing Elohim. I'm not a shopping list, and I'm not here to cater to religious ideologies. Like, that's not the case. And that's why I shun and denounce most, if not all, religions, because they're propagating things that have nothing to do with me. And, like, what benefit is that to mankind at that point? So, loving thy neighbor, right? If you knew your neighbor so much that you knew the struggle that you see on the surface and below, you as a neighbor are there to lend a hand when he needs it. You can understand the tears when they come. You can understand things in a much deeper way, and you can also position yourself to be there, but to help thy neighbor, right? And then by continuing that cycle, right, you are honoring me. And when I say me, right, that is, you're honoring the Spirit, what I call my Father, who remains in heaven, but is in me, right, permanently in me. And again, as above, below, right, in the flesh, I'm considered the Son. Because there has to be a constant upstairs, you understand? And being on earth, right, I am susceptible to being, being a man, in man, right? I am susceptible to imperfection in some ways. So that's why, when prayer, when worship, when glory and all that, we pray upwards. That is where perfection remains. I strive for that on earth, but at the same time, the garbs in the robe gets bloodied being on earth, because unfortunately the work that I have to do involves blood, right? If you're a winemaker and you got to stomp grapes, you're going to get some grape squishies between your toes. Like, it's a part of the job. That's what I mean. And so, having to judge every type of sin in mankind means I've had to, come face to face with it. I've had to witness to it, see it, digest it. I've had to swallow it myself, because I would never be able to accurately judge people without ever having essentially tasted it first, for myself. Because we don't need stuff that's unnecessary for the proper human experience. Like, we don't need excess. And that's where a lot of, again, churches convolute stuff. I mean, some people look at me and they think I'm overly complicated. Others look at me and think I'm overly simple. So it really depends on the frame of mind. If you think loving the Creator by His true name and just accepting Him and saying, hey, okay, I can see that creation works in perfect harmony. I can see my physical science people have proven thus far there is nothing else in the universe other than planet Earth. And then planet Earth is the most diverse place. And again, human beings cannot recreate anything on Earth. Like, you can't. You guys cannot recreate anything on Earth that I've made, me and Father have made from, call it the God power. But mankind, right, you still try. So it's like you got to put that ego and that pride down and say, okay, like, there's something to this legitimately. So if mankind is, naturally sinful, right, because of the fall, and then because of the influence of constant demonic presence upon the earth, right, when you're talking about, competing, that's really where it comes from. Is you've got the few, legit demons in high places and fallen ones in high places. They're puppeteering the masses, and they're literally leading you down the road of a fake religion, of fake names. That's what I mean. The devil doesn't have to break out horns and a tail and some little red, thing. All he has to do is convince you to eat from the tree. And, people do. Because in their twisted mind of what's right and what's wrong, it doesn't exist. And that's what I mean, right? It'd be like the bird without wings. Well, he can technically still eat worms, but he's going to be hopping on the ground. He's never going to experience flight of what it feels like to be in a tree where he belongs. The bird would never know what it's like to soar across the skies. The bird would never know those things without the wings. If the bee couldn't produce honey, then he essentially would be purposeless too. That's what I mean. If you take the purpose away from any part of creation, then you just have an abomination. And if mankind's job was to be good stewards on the earth, love their God and love their neighbor, the world should be a mecca of creative ideas, and war shouldn't even be a thing. Famine should not exist. Homelessness should not exist. If you didn't have sin ran rampant, you would never have cases of abortion, so therefore you would never have to argue about is it legal or not legal. If you remove sin, 100% of the human ailments, poverty, hunger, sickness, death, disease, dismemberment, people again are born with really bad diseases. And again, it's because of a tainted and fallen bloodline. And, I will address that really quick. So to the gentleman that did ask that question, I will give an answer. And I apologize if it came off like I was blowing you off. That's not what I meant. What I mean sometimes is I'm trying to get across a much larger point, and then I get people that are really stuck on things of the flesh. And to me, it's just like we're not elevating. So yeah, if you're a negative, then you want to be paired with another negative. And, you want to obviously make sure, you're going to be good indefinitely, because, right, we never want to get a divorce. Like, that's like the last thing on the table. It happens, and if it does, life goes on. But at the end of the day, you want to choose your partner based on that factor, right? Because you want to be able to be in creation, unabated, medically speaking. So I'm not saying don't go to a doctor if you're sick or if you need something like that. What I mean is you should be able to procreate 100% naturally without medical intervention. Now, if there are problems like giving birth, and sometimes that's unavoidable, still seek that medical attention. But you shouldn't need a Rogram shot, right? And that's kind of funny. They name things like my last name, Graham, a Rogram shot. Tetragrammaton. They need a tetragrammaton shot just to make the fetus live. But point is, right, you want to avoid that situation, and you want to avoid to continually contaminate the bloodline. Like, we can get that cleaned up. That's a pretty easy one. But as far as, the cultural differences of those things, like goes with like. I'll give you that. So the big box to be checked there is the blood type, because we want to make sure, again, we're within creation, not abominably making creations that are going to be more susceptible to illness, cancer, sickness, and all these. And then again, for happiness. I mean, personally, I like to see things like because I also like to strengthen the individual communities. Because if I'm going to China, I want Chinese food, right? I want to see those I forget what they're called, like they're banner shows or something like that. They have like those little twirly things, like the geishas, right? Well, you wouldn't have a proper Asian geisha, right, if they were all, going all over the place, right? Then you'd have like Mesoamerican geisha. Like, I'm just saying, it takes away from the beauty. Because that's kind of like telling me, yeah, can a red cardinal mate with a blue jay? Well, they never would, is my answer to you. Like, they never would. They don't find like outside of their own, is what I'm saying. So we have beautiful red cardinals, we have beautiful blue jays, we have, amazing woodpeckers, we have eagles. Like, that's what I mean. You shouldn't look at it as, well, can I push the boundary? Can I go outside of creation? Like, this is that mindset of the fallen spirit, of you're trying to find ways to please your flesh, and you're trying to essentially be in a position somehow culturally or genetically or somehow that you're on top. Like, I get it. I know the world would love for me to say all the black people are saved and are going to heaven and they're the true Israelites in Africa. Like, that's not truth, though. Like, I understand what you want, but I can also tell you that it's not true. But it's also not true that all white people are going to heaven, or all white people are great, or all white people are bad either. That's what I mean. I look at everybody on that same tone line. So, if you're a cardinal, find a cardinal. If you're a blue jay, find a blue jay, right? And the arc, right? Like by like, 2 by 2, male and female of the same likeness. So 2 tigers, 2 lions, 2 elephants, 2 giraffes, and so on and so forth. Because that's back to the original design. And what would happen, right, is if you were to look at things like that, you were cleaning up your act, right? You're not sinning, you're not walking after the flesh. And that's another thing, because if we're looking at the flesh like that, well, you're still working a wicked mind at that point. You're working something to achieve a flesh end result, versus purity, relying on the element of creation and of the intelligent design that goes behind everything, because there is intelligent design. Everything you see, down from the grass, down to the weeds, down to the trees, to the animals therein, like everything. And if people could step outside of themselves, that's how you can get rid of ego. Step out of yourself and care more about your spouse. Take your wants and needs out of it, and care for your kids, care for your spouse. Work on that first, right? You want to work with inner peace in the home as one of your first steps to achieving your righteousness. When you can get a hold of it and you can fight the flesh, lean into the goodness, then you can begin extending yourself to thy neighbor, right? I'm not saying everyone needs to go around being best buddies with their neighbor. That would be great. But you need to look at, others within the creation and have concern for them, right? That's kind of my thing, is when I was saying yesterday about give the microphone to those who I've given a spirit, because if I've got, just for numbers, let's say I had 1 million people in my churches in America, and then I'm trying to give out spirits, 999,000 of them were unable to receive it. They're already full. They accepted. It was like eating before dinner. I'm cooking a wonderful meatloaf, and all those that were eating candy and junk food and all that, they're not hungry. They're not even smelling the meatloaf. They're not even sitting at the table, because their pastor filled them up with false everything. And there's no room for the true and living God to come into their heart. There's no room for them. There's no room for them to open up for me. And that's what I mean, right? Then who do I go back to blame? Well, I blame those pastors and those teachers and all that. And it's like, you guys took your job so unseriously that I'm the one that has to break so much bad news to the world. So it's like everyone hates me for my own name. Like, I mean, this is a real issue we're having. Right? Because I'm not going to accept Christians with Jesus. The Jews are never going to accept that. But at the same time, I'm never going to, the 10 Commandments are a permanent fixture in any human civilized society. So that's not going away either, right? I personally lean more into a Hanukkah-based holiday versus Christmas. But my house does both, right? That's another thing. I look at more ways to try to support causes that are not negatively impacting me or my mission or the kingdom. And again, if Christmas could clean it up a little bit, I'm not in complete disgust about it, but I would like to remove the pagan origins, the roots, and then like the Easter and like all that stuff, right? This is all going back to Babylonian gods, pagan stuff that Rome, unfortunately, right? Rome has always been a big influencer. Rome is just really smart about how they go about it. So in the old days, right, when they first adopted, the religion of Yeshua and the one true God and all these things, well, they weren't selling tickets to the church seats. Let's say it that way. So just like in any human congregation, right, or any business, well, guys, we need to get nickels and noses. I heard a pastor say that, and it's like, so nickels and noses by putting a Starbucks in your church. It's the same thing the Romans did back then when they're like, well, maybe if we did a holiday like this, it would actually attract, European pagans. They had the money, so they're trying to attract all these different groups of people by enticing them with rituals. just like you guys are now, right? Football is more of a religion that people believe and buy into more than the true religion on the earth, right? Mine, or about me. That's another thing, right? Because human beings, they like ritual things. So your football, they like the face painting, they like the chants, they like you wear this, like it's all ritual. You're actually itching your own ears because you're doing what's pleasing to the flesh, and unfortunately you are expressing fallen angel traits. These are all traits of the fallen angels, right? Lust of the eyes, entertaining themselves, right, with their own miniature creations, right, because they couldn't be enthralled with the original creation. They failed to be in purpose and in sync with the father of the house. So therefore, they took it like the rebellious teenager. They took it and ran with it, and then it's like justify, embrace, and that's where a lot of congregations, like, it's sad. Because again, the devil doesn't need to do a whole lot, but the little bit he does do and the amount of time he lets these things go creates massive issues for me. It'd be like having one small leak under your house, and if you're just going to go on a couple days trip and you get back to fix it, no big deal. Hardly anything was disturbed. But if you had that same leak and it leaked for 1,000 years, my dude, you're going to have a massive hole under your house. Your house may not even be there. Like, it's going to be in the dirt. It's gone. That's how this process works. Because right now, I have congregations that are already revving up and gearing up. Praise Jesus, the name of Jesus. Like you guys, I'm never going to accept you. And that's what I mean. You want to stand against me and still do that, then you're not in the game for truth. You're not in the game for true eternal life. And then I just come back to it like, then you as a pastor, do you not believe me? So you are an unbeliever, right? Or you are a denier, or whatever the case may be, right? That's my point. I'm not sitting here, sitting under the name of Bob, saying to worship Bob. I'm not sitting here saying that you should go and pick up some, half-baked Bible that I wrote in my basement. Like, no, people. I'm talking about the Holy Bible. And I'm not talking about all your mini stories. I'm not talking about people that witnessed and put their opinion on paper 100 years later, or 60 years later, or 40 years later, or even 30 years later. I'm going by only things that can not only be proven with the time that we've had, right? But I'm also proving it through not only current events, right? Through prophecy, but not prophecy where I'm receiving a message and then giving it. Prophecy where I tell you I'm about to do something, then I just do it. So that would be the big difference between when people say like a high priest. A high priest is someone who is going to God and is asking something. I don't go to a God and ask anything. I counsel with myself, usually in my own head. And I weigh the pros and cons. And a lot of times the conversation is, okay, show me what would happen if I did this. And then the angels will usually do a little toodaloo, and then I can see what the outcome would be, right? So let's just use a good example of the election. So before the election went down, me and the angels were kind of tabling, and I'm like, all right, run me the numbers of what it looks like this way, and then let me see it. They run the numbers and they show me the outcome. Then we run the numbers a different way, right? So right now, I did that last night when I was running my numbers. And I was doing that with the Gaza Strip. So I was talking to Asher and I was like, I got a decision to make. And a lot of times these decisions are going to really be based upon how many lives could be lost or will be lost, and what target of society that's going to be. And these are not fun for me. So when I'm telling you, please stop fighting against me, because as much as I want to be in every church, I want to physically be there in the Ruach, I want as many people who can embrace the truth to embrace me, because I have a really big job to do. And when I'm about to do things that There's so many lives dependent on it. I don't like to come at problems like this that I need to solve for the world, for you, while I'm arguing with Jack Hibbs, or I'm arguing with James Cadis, or I'm arguing with Joyce Renner. Like, all these people, you guys have a purpose in your heart and you work it against me instead of for me. Like, that's sad. Like, it breaks my heart to pieces. It does. And I get so emotionally caught up in those things because I'm in awe. I'm awestruck, but I'm sad. I'm literally devastated so many times because I'm like, great. Like, not only do I have to continue to deal with these issues that shouldn't be issues, but I know they're issues because the devil is a very real adversary to our kingdom, the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of YHWH. Like, he is genuinely like a cosmic pain in the butt. And again, I feel bad, right? Because, and again, I'm not calling you guys dogs, but it's like, I can't even put the cone on my dog's head because the dog would rather bite me. But the dog is chewing his butt bloody, and I have to sit back and take it because the dog he doesn't have the proper ability to see the wounds, the infliction he's doing on himself, because it feels good, and that's another thing. How am I going to fight people that walk into church, they get their lapel pin, they get their cup of coffee, and their emotions are being pulled like strings at a concert? They're feeling good, but falsely. They're praising and they're worshiping and they're enticing a seducing spirit that's not mine. And it's like, I've got so many big ticket items I got to worry about, like right now with Gaza, with the war. Not only the war in Russia, the war in Ukraine. Like, I know America feels like they're the center of the universe, and I know a lot of you pastors that I do talk about think you're the center of the universe. Well, in some ways you kind of are, right? And that's where it's like, nobody's my Moses. Like, where is a Moses? Where is, like, where are you guys? Like, I know where you are. I know where you were supposed to be in my play. But everyone is everywhere other than where you should have been. And again, a lot of it was driven by money, compliments, and that's what I mean. The devil will compliment you all the way to hell. Like, that is a terrible system. I hate it because it makes me look bad. It makes me always look like the mean one. But I'm not mean. I am effective. I am efficient. I am graceful. I am authoritative because the creation itself works in perfection. And I'm only mean to a creation that is not working in its effectiveness for the purpose in which it was given, a purpose given by me. And that's what I mean, right? When the bed refuses to be laid on, when the chair refuses to be sat on, when the dinner is inedible, when the house is unlivable, the bird has no wings, the bee can't make honey. I have pastors that they don't even want to get to know me. Or if they do, they make their laundry list of every reason why I'm not this, or I'm not that, or I'm not this. And it's like, you guys can't get yourself out of yourself long enough to accept the truth. It'd be like someone being sold 2,000 years a means of transportation, and the transportation I had in mind was a car, but for 2,000 years they were sold the blueprints of a bicycle. So now they'll snub their nose at the car. Like, you guys snub your nose at me. And I'm like, I feel like I'm in some crazy Twilight Zone, because I'm like, I feel like I was way undersold, A. And I feel like I am, like, really showing out and shining through in so many ways. But it's like, there's not even an eye to see what I'm doing, because everyone's obsessed with working their own will. They're obsessed with proselytizing falseness. And at some point, like, I need to have legitimate I need to have my team, right? I mean, I need to have at least 12 what you might call disciples or apostles or leaders. You know I can rely on St. Peter. He's over there in New Kingdom and Arizona. So I appreciate Pastor Peter's commitment to me in the kingdom and the cause. But just like with, Pastor Peter, right? I can't blaze forward into our big ticket items with just me and him. And so many of you I've touched long ago in spirit and had you set up for a purpose, only to drop in now in the time I'm here and I'm actively working in the presence of you, alive and well as an Elohim, as God Almighty, Yahweh, Elohim, YHWH, and I visit my people of purpose like Mike from around the world, like you were. I had so many eggs in that basket. And I picked up a couple of your episodes where you were flirting with the real name and then you dropped it like it was hot, reverted back to Jesus, and I feel like it just soured the whole bowl. And it's like, now I got to cut that off because that was supposed to grow and it was supposed to fruit for me and it didn't. Paul Bigley, same thing. I can say this about so many of you, that you guys were working your purpose for me, but you guys instead worked it against me. It'd be like, enemy fire kind of thing. If we're talking military terms, I'm outfitting so many people years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 for some of you. Some of you are older working the purpose for me. And I know that's hard for you to stomach, because you're like, how are you only 36 years old and you're talking about things that happened before you were even born? That's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm not like you. I am the spirit of Yahweh Elohim in a flesh body called YHWH. Yahweh, YHWH. So I operate in a very different way than you. And that's what requires trust. Do you trust at least the first 5 books of the Bible? That's the Bible. That is the Bible, right? And then we have, biblically inspired scripture, or we have, just biblical scripture in general, which is good for reading. But I mean, when we're talking about our Torah, the Torah is it. That is and was the way, the truth, and the light, teaching that Torah and then using your supporting stories to support your Torah teaching. That's what that's for. So another thing is, a lot of people don't even teach properly. You should be teaching Torah on an annual basis. You should be using other stories and parts of the Bible as your witness in that situation, or as your example, And then you're not only teaching a direct lesson out of Torah and the Bible, but you should be tying that into your real day modern life. So we want to make sure that our people are getting a full stomach when they're coming to their services. Because if I was a pastor, right, I would expect my congregation to be truth and honor and honor the 10% tithe. But as a pastor, I would make sure that I am fulfilling not the duty that I've given myself, or the duty the bishop has given me, or even the Pope for that matter, or whoever. You owe it to me. You owe it to God. You owe it to me to do your job the way I want you to do it. Because not you, but I know the effectiveness and the outcome of such things. All right, we're coming up on the 53-minute mark, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue. Okay, back. Sorry about the delay there. But actually, it was good taking that little break, because I was able to speak with the wife consort, and, I like to talk through things with her a lot of times, and this is going back to previous videos as well. When you're talking about selecting, your spouse, male or female, right? Then you want to find somebody that's going to be nourishing to you. So going back to candy, right? Well, candy can sometimes be really sweet and tasty. I love chocolate personally, so I could, just eat chocolate, but I have to have the discipline to know that it's unhealthy, right? Just like with your spouse. You want a spouse that is not only going to be supportive, but is also going to be kind of on your level, right? For me, I need my spouse to obviously love me above all else, and she does, but to also be honest. And I run things through her, right? And she can help me explain perspectives to you guys and gals, and sometimes a lot more effectively, so you can thank her for that. But we were discussing this topic, and I was like, let's use the dog with fleas. Well, let's say flea medication being put on the dog would be a godsend for the dog, right? He does then no longer have to deal with fleas. But you know what it is also at the same time. So in the dog's world, he was saved by the flea. He was saved by the medication, so he doesn't now have fleas. But the fleas then die. So that same medication that's helping the dog is killing the fleas. That's how I am. Those that are not demonically driven, those that are not under Satan's house, those good people, right? The righteous souls, those that I want, I'm trying to apply my saving medicine to you. And therefore the fleas won't get you anymore. But then if someone is of the house of the devil, or they're the adversary themselves, or they're the seed of the adversary, they're going to look at me probably as the devil, right? They're going to look at me because they're getting their butts kicked. And the spirit, just like the fleas like, oh my gosh, this medicine is killing us. Like we can't do anything. We're dying. So the fleas lashing out. I am hating to say this, but I've got more fleas in churches and religious places than anywhere else. Like the ones that shouldn't even have needed the medicine need it the most, and yet they're the ones that will happily and haughtily stand up against me. And you guys are essentially giving in like a wartime scenario again, right? You're giving friendly fire. I've armed so many of you with wonderful purposes and all the means and all the resources to do your purpose, and only to come around now to find out you guys are working your purpose against me. Because maybe you didn't go far enough into your studies, or maybe you drank too much of the Kool-Aid. And that's the thing, right? Hasatan, has Jim Jones the planet. And I'm trying to un-Jim Jones the planet. But then I have people that, are waving, these flags that's drawing crowds. You're drawing more fleas and you're thinking it's good. And I'm telling you it's not good. So we're having this like back and forth. And I can only really rely on my flanges, my accessories, my people, my people that know truth. They know me, they know my coming, they know historical truth, like all these things. They're out there like the medicine and they're applying it. But then again, they're encountering the same opposition as I am. And so that's where we're at. So, right, as chief deity, what do I do in this point? And, well, anyway. So, moving on with our to-do list. I answered that question. Yeah, and so kind of just rounding that point out. Jews and Gentiles, when you guys are under the true name and you can get those things lined up, you guys are brothers. Like you guys worship the same house. You guys worship in the same house, or should be. And all your praise, glory, and worship is going to the one true God. Like you're letting your traditions, you're letting your egos, you're letting your cultural initiatives change you and your faith, where that should never happen, right? You should never let a tradition, the works of your hand, that you should never be swaying away from the staple truth, right? Which is honoring your Creator through being good stewards of the earth, participating in creation in a righteous way by following the 10 Commandments, knowing that the help you need is offered through the living Christ, right? The Elohim on earth, who is the Father incarnate on earth, right? That's the whole point. You wouldn't want to go to a man and then, like the Pope, right? Then you go to the Pope and then, oh, pray for me. Like, then what was the point of the veil being split? What was the point of the piercing of the veil? Then that's literally saying to me, you're trashing the sacrifice of Yeshua, the son of Joseph, son of Mary, and you're trashing him and his purpose for the sake of man worship and man glory. When the learned and the honest and the truthful can look at those situations and go, this has nothing to do with the one true God. This has everything to do with everything the one true God said not to do. Don't make graven images. There's tons. Don't worship items of gold, of silver, of stone, of wood. There's tons. I mean, literally, the whole fire in France. I mean, I blew a stack because of the effort that put into trying to save the fake crown of thorns. And that's what I mean, right? People would rather lust over these things. They don't have life, they don't have breath, they don't have energy, they don't have a soul, they don't have a spirit, they don't have the God power, they don't have a personality. But in a sick human's mindset, they look at it too as, well, it fulfills my fleshly desire to want to worship something, but I want to worship something that isn't going to bite me. I want to worship something that's really in truth. You want to worship something that isn't real. And that's, I don't even know if that's unfixable. Maybe some of the pastors and preachers in the congregation can fix that. Another one. So, Todd Hoffman, love you guys. I'm really proud of, some of the things you guys have done. I do see that's a kind of a shame what's happened on the claim there. I definitely love your perseverance, though. I definitely am hearing you guys a lot better. So I think that's really cool. Try and get on the truth train in fullness with confidence. That's all I can say. But you guys aren't done yet. So there's going to be some cool things. If you guys can work around the name thing, I'm telling you, I'm gonna do some cool things with you guys. Anyway. And on that update too. So me and the missus were planning on doing a relocation here after our eldest is going off to college. So, hang on one second. Okay. Sorry about that. So yeah, we were talking. We're going to be relocating after our eldest goes to college. So we were initially thinking about Laurel, Mississippi, because that was considered, what was it considered? Like the Lord's town or something like that. Anyway, we visited Laurel. It was really, really nice. Liked all the people, and my wife is really big into like home remodeling shows. So our next adventure is going to be to Arkansas. We're looking for a little place, hopefully on like some land, and kind of step by step. But that's kind of our family dream. And my family is also, by extension, your family. Every church should be a house of family that has, my spirit operating in there, right? And we all should be working as one well-oiled machine, because a house that's divided cannot stand. And that is true in all layers. Right? When we're talking spiritually, I don't want you outside with the fleas. I want you inside in the comfort and protection, of the Holy Family. And, when you look at it as a family, and you can put down, right, the hard lines, like all the excess. That's another thing, right? There's just so much excess when you're talking about religion. You know, if I could go back in time and just start over, you know, and I feel like we've done this, but it still got convoluted, you know. It's just going back and explaining how to be a good human and understanding that the world's in a fallen state, and we need as many, you know, who are called to stand up for truth and righteousness, and to gather as many and keep them tucked away, right, for the great day to come, which is coming soon, that's going to judge all that and eliminate the evil of the world. And then essentially it will be like this huge cloud lifted from the minds and the hearts and the quite literal fabric of reality, that will be an entirely new paradigm shift. I would like people to understand, you know, when I see things from upstairs in the millennial reign and beyond, these problems that are so big today will be just stories, you know. And when I say these things, like from the past, right, imagine being the men and women who were the closest to, like, the dinosaur ages, right? You know, they had still remnants of these things, you know. Like, I know that's probably not in your history books either, but I mean, imagine these people, you know, before writing and like all these things, like the very, very first human beings, before they were garnered souls and all this. But I mean, just from that mind frame, right? They're coming in the beginning of the end of the heels of an epoch, right? An age that ended, you know. Then you have, well, I won't go through history, but I'm just saying, like, if you could see forward and you could see that, what does the future look like? All falsities are removed. All veils are removed. There is no order of the Roman Catholic Church. That doesn't exist in the future. People that have the Jesus thing, like, none of that exists in the future. The people in heaven, that's not something that they do, say, or want, or anything. Like, it would be like, you know, the ignorance level is going to be, if a white man in Europe went to Africa thinking that that's where the chocolate milk cows were. Like, it would make someone say, what did you just say? Like, should I be offended at this? Like, or is it just this stupid that it not only makes no sense, but it's like, who the hell said that? Like, you know, the look you have when you're driving and someone cuts you off and you have to look at them to see, like, hang on, who was so stupid that... That's that look. Like, that's what I mean. Like, the drool face. Like, this is how my supposed churches make me feel. Last night I was talking with the angels. We were laying in bed, me and Ashera, and we were having our usual banter. And I started laughing, and she's like, what are you laughing at? You know? And I'm like, I just heard a good example, you know? And I was like, what the angels were saying, like, Majesty, what you're trying to say is you're the bridegroom, and they bought the suit for you, but it's three sizes too small. It's the wrong color, and Majesty, you don't even like the suit. And then the angel goes on and was like, you know, the Christmas story where the little kid has to wear the pink bunny outfit, right? And he hates it, but it's like his aunt made it for him, and like his aunt is so proud of it. And it's like, this is how I feel with my churches. Like, you guys are trying to outfit me for a name I don't like, a name that I won't accept, and yet, like, you're trying to force feed me the wrong substances, even when I'm vomiting it to you. You guys are offended that I don't like the cheap, crappy suit you built for me, you tailored for me. And it's like, I can pick out my own suit, thank you. You're gonna have to accept my wedding picture the way I want it. not the way you want it, right? So just some food for thought. But let's see. Yeah, and then kind of round it out, right? My big teaching point was the hardest spirits to give are those people in churches. And those who are not in the false churches are actually getting spirits. So when I'm broadcasting spirit, and then I check to see, right? And I'm like, okay, all right, let me see what congregations are able to catch the spirit. I'm like, none, almost none. And then that same day or a couple days after, I'll start seeing these new congregations pop up, right? Or people that have 0 people watching on YouTube, and they are, what's jokingly, not jokingly, like, they've been touched by God. They've been touched by me. I was able to touch that heart before they've had a knowledge of the Bible, before they've had a knowledge of me. So they're starting in reverse. And it's one of the most pleasing things for all my senses to see, because I see these people who wake up and just 24 hours ago, they were hardcore drug addicts. They were abusers. They were sometimes the scum of the earth. But even they were eligible to receive a spirit because they knew one thing. They didn't know anything. And that's why they were propelled to do drugs. They were propelled to act the way they act because they were an empty vessel. So they weren't filled with anything. I come along and I'm like, that's an empty cup. I'm going to fill that up. And I do. And then next thing you know, they are in awe. And those people, right, they're in awe and amazement because they're like, only God could have done this for me in my life. And then they submit their life unto me and unto the heavenly powers, because they know that power isn't aliens. They know it isn't placebo. They know it isn't medication. They know it isn't them. They know sure as heck it wasn't them. It wasn't anything other than God, Yahweh Elohim Yahuwah, to do that in them. And so they literally, one of the first things out of their mouth, like, these guys have never prayed before, some of them, and then they'll hit those knees and they're crying, right? They're like a broken egg. They're just all over the place, runny. But they give their life over to the crown, and they're like, Father in heaven or whatever. They are just so thankful. They're grateful, and they're not arguing with me. They're literally so happy and glad that they don't have to do another drug. They can now see their own shame, and they do. And that's one of the first things that people experience when they receive a newborn spirit is they can then see their shame. And it's a hard pill to swallow. Nobody likes to feel their own shame. I don't like feeling my own shame, and I get really uncomfortable being down here when I'm working the trenches like I do, because I get dirty. I speak sometimes too harshly. Sometimes I will adopt an approach because I do see things from such a high level and such a macro view that, I can sometimes focus more attention on the problem children instead of edifying the grateful children, who have received spirits and they're tucked away tight, and that thing is, salvation isn't just for Christians and Gentiles or Jews. Salvation is for every human being upon the planet. And even in those far reach places, trust me, I've got it covered. Like, believe in me, I've got it covered. I'm not going to let one man, woman, or child go without what I call an offering. Whereas I, the Lord, present to them an offering of eternal life. Know my name. Know your Creator, right? Know why you're here. Know the purpose in your heart. Give that commitment unto the house of the holy, unto my Father Yahweh, who is Yahweh on earth, incarnate as Yahuwah. And that's it. Think of a righteous family where all people in that family are working in seamless harmony. The kids have a role. They're happy in their role. They grow in their role. The father of the house, is in perfect sync with the woman of the house, the God of the house, the goddess of the house. and then the Son of God in the house, right? I'm teaching Cameron all things about heaven and earth. And like, that's not a joke. That's not a fallacy. Like, this is not a game. These things are very real. And that's my thing, right? Is anybody who even has the want, need, or the knee-jerk reaction to try to rebuke me or call me anything other than true, I only look at you with pitiful eyes, because if your truth is not aligning with what is true, with what I'm telling you, then that's a you problem. Like, truly, it's a you problem. Because I'll tell you one thing, I don't think I have to argue any point that if I wanted to turn away from my own churches and I wanted to be selfish and say, I've got my queen, I've got my sons, and, I could do anything upon the earth, even included make money. I mean, I could literally be richer than anybody on this planet, but I already am, because I own the planet. Therefore, those things don't matter to me as much as they do to you guys. Your souls are what matter to me. And I'm simply trying to encourage getting more people saved, And that's another thing, right? Water baptism. I want to be able to seal you with my true name. And then you will have something special that you're going to walk away with. And not only something just, as said, but something that's real. And that's something that when you have that water baptism, you're going to be able to take it elsewhere. And on that, there was a question from our congregation, should you do water baptisms in like the little hot tubs, or should you do it elsewhere? Excuse me. Personally, I'm a river baptizing kind of person. And call me old school, but I really like that song. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. That one. I'm not a very good singer, but the point is, like, that's one of my favorite songs, and I do look forward to the day when I'm relocated in Arkansas. My family don't have much in terms of money, so we are having to save everything we can to try to make that mini dream come true. And the thing is, that's even considered a side pay, because I want to be able to have, a tabernacle, something, right, in a location that not only the Holy Family can dwell in, but I want to be able to have that place of gathering. There would be nothing more exciting for me than to be able to hold festivals in America and in Israel, where, certain festivals, all of America can gather on the land. And that's why I use the number like 1,000 acres, right? As I want a place that when it's feast time, I want everyone to know, all right, hey, we're going to go visit the Lord. We're going to receive blessings, we're going to make it an event. And, so much so that I would like, and I don't think this would even be a problem, again, why Trump is in office, want to make some things happen. The Gaza plan, I think, is an amazing idea. I think we should move on with that. I think having the place of gathering, because at the same time, imagine a couple or a family, maybe they're struggling in some areas, right? They're prospering in other areas, but they still have needs. Imagine them making say it's a 4-day pilgrimage, right? And I have 1,000 acres in Arkansas and cabins that people can come and, work out the living situation there for the few days for the festival. But imagine that those people could meet with my priest, and my priest can do one-on-ones with these people. And I'm not talking about any bureaucracy, no red tape, If a family is in need of a car, if a family is in need of a house, if a family is in need of a healing, a family is in need of anything, and not just where it stops at the bank or where it stops at the hospital or where it stops at the charity of others. No, the place of gathering, I want it to be a place of reality and a place of so much faith and sureness that no one ever comes without a full expectation of receiving a blessing from me. And if need be, the material needs of the family. While those things are still in play, I want to ensure that my people, my real people, not the fake people, not the devil people, not the demon people, because that's another thing, is I have to be really choosy on that, because I can't let an untreated dog into the house to get on the bed and hop in the chair, and like, if the dog has fleas, he puts my others at risk. Which is why the shepherds, the pastors, right, you leaders, you also need to be watchful, because you are doubled as teachers, you're doubled as pastors, but you're also doubled as watchmen. And watchmen is not just watching out for my coming. I've came. Now your next task is you need to start combing your groups. You need to have more hands-on. And for pastors that have, 1,000 or more attendees every week, that's a lot of work cut out for you. So what I would like to see, if you've got 1,000 or more, I want to see you working 3 days a week at least. Let's see you on Sunday, Wednesday, and a Tuesday or a Thursday night. Like, I want to see these things happen, because that's a lot of people to try to get a hold on. And I understand the sentiment. I understand the prayers, and I've heard a lot of them in the last 2 weeks. I've heard, and not even using my name, but I hear, Father, please guide me, please help me. I have a congregation, I don't know what to do. Like, we've been praising, and this is what y'all say to me. We've been praising your son Jesus' name for 60 years. Please, Lord God Almighty, help us, down this road of change. Please show me a sign. And a lot of times I will, and you guys don't see it, because it's not something of what you're looking for, a certain sign, but I'm only given a certain sign, right? I gave you the sign of Jonah. I said that I would give you the sign of Jonah. I've given plenty enough time to let you guys work through the proofs that I've offered you. And that's another frustration I have, is almost nobody has gone through with a seriousness to prove me. And I've given you all the proof, right? It's almost like everyone's trying to crack the cold case, but no one is literally just accepting the truth, because it's the obvious truth. Like, I am who I am, and then people get confused. They're like, well, are you Jesus or are you not Jesus? If I say I am the actual son of Yahweh Elohim, and my name mirrors my father's, YHWH, and in verbiage it's Yahuwah, right, using the Wah as a Y, right, because the J wasn't in existence back then. So showing that homage, that tribute, right, to the roots, okay, to try to captivate everybody, but also remain juxtaposed to staunch religious organizations, or those who want to say they're right? So my kind of tactic is to say everyone's wrong. You're going to need to come and drink my very particular brand, so I know, right, that I know I can rely on you. I can count on you to be a messenger of the good news. I can count on you to start building your purposes up in heaven. Because that's another thing. I understand right now it's very difficult for people to see. But when you're with me, right, you're going to have eternal life. That's a very real thing. I swear by it. I swear my own name by it. And it's a very physical, real thing, which has real implications. So there are going to be purposes that are stored up for you. And these purposes, you guys are going to work your purposes for me down here, but up there it'll be a different type of purpose, right? So I've said this before. It may be a little too early for this kind of talk, but I want you to imagine that if you work your purpose well down here, and I've given you a little bit, and you've given me your time, your talent, right, 1/10 of you, and I take you upstairs and I go, now I'm assigning you, right, your part-time job, if you will, is you're going to watch over this baby. You're going to watch this baby grow. and you're going to be connected with me. So you're going to have kind of like an autopilot feature that's going to give you a bit of that God power to be able to work on my behalf, right, as a direct messenger of me, as an angel of Yahweh. And that's a really high purpose in my kingdom. So you some people, right, you'd be able to carry a legitimate angelic body, right, an eternal body that never perishes, never hungers, nothing like that, but we still do eat. We do. But you'd have a very big purpose. And that's the thing, right? Then you would be on the other side of kind of the curtain, right, helping the future generations along. And another thing is, we got to build that trust. We got to have a foundation of trust. And that can only really come from, kind of testing and trying things. But, all right. So it went a little long today, but again, I'm going to try and tighten it up a little bit as far as not kind of coming unhinged. I think most people get it. And the ones that just, at this level in the game, like the ones that are refusing downright and still, in the false name. I mean, at some point, folks, like, I'm going to have to cut bait. Like, I am going to have to cut bait. And like I said, I'm going to leave you alone and turn my ears off to you because I can't deal with that level of frustration constantly. Like, it's just not healthy for me. It's not healthy for me when I've got so much to do in the realms. I've got a lot to do physically here, and I still have to raise my boy, and I'm still very much of a husband to Asherah, and she's very much a wife to me. So we have, the inner holy family. Like, we are the holy of the holy, the house of the holy. But socks too. I've got some holes in my socks. That's a bad joke. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, have a great Wednesday. And just for the record, it was February 12th, 25. Have a good day. Maybe I'll come on a little later, but if not, I'll catch you tomorrow.